be able to just say you have no ports open except for 5433, and that's it. So I can really control at a fine-tune, and where the connections are coming from. So whether it's coming internal from my EC2, whether it's coming external, and it would log all that information.
And actually, you can even get so fine-tuned on your database. You can set it up where it can only take access from a single IP.
Right.
So you can make it. You can tie it directly to your web server computers, where nothing can get to that if it ain't coming from your web server.
Right.
Period.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah, they give you some really good security stuff.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
So again, you're controlling everything. Here's your route tables. Let's see, which one is the... I did this routing table. I'm not a big network guy. I know it, I get through it, but I mean, it's not my specialty. As you know, I mean, routing, networking is a whole black magic, right? So I was doing this with the help of my buddy who really helped me out and just said, okay, well, times 24 or times 16, what's your sitter block? It would force you, and it forces you to do it right too. You can't just, jerry rig it and say, oh gosh, I'm just going to do a 16. No, you have to do different, and it forces you different availability zones too. You have to have 2 availability zones within a certain VPC or different region. Internet gateway, you have to set up an internet gateway first. If we go back to our thing here, you actually have to set this internet gateway up. If we go to this one right here, you can see up here, there's an internet gateway that would attach itself, and then it would point, to accordingly to where the traffic needs to go. Security, ACL, VPN. I wanted to set up a VPN connection. One of the reasons I set up 2 different VPCs is because I wanted to set up a VPN connection, ended up never really using it. One of the reasons why is because the cost was so prohibitive. They charge you by the minute, I think it was, and it was actually pretty significant. Peering connections, you need to set up a peer between 2 different VPCs. So this is important. So it went from this VPC sitter block to this VPC sitter block over here. And that's how you connect the 2 VPCs together from 2 different clouds that you have. Let's see what else. Route table. Okay, is there anything else in... Alright, so we have a little bit of time. Some pitfalls that I ran into. I was not able to get Content Box installed once SSL was encrypted or connected. I'm not sure if it was a failure of Content Box, a failure of the sticky sessions being set up, but I would always get to a point in time where it would ask me, hey, where's your RDS service, and then we're going to set up for you. Is the database already set up? And after that, it would just fail, and it would go back, and it would force itself to a non-SSL, but then I would force things back to an SSL. I never got it to work. So I don't know, again, if that was a Content Box issue. I never really needed it, but I would have really loved to have it. It would have been really nice. Security and credentials. I'll show you guys real quick. So multi-factor authentication they have set up, groups users. So if I have Email service, use the JG Capcan one right here. See this? This was set up just for the email, and that's it. Full access to the email. I had no access to anything else. So I would use that just to send out emails and whatever. I had no actual user accounts. This was me, obviously. This is my buddy Leo, who had access. He never used it. I think we just used mine. You can set up the Elastic Beanstalk has nothing to do, by the way, with CF. I set my Beanstalk up originally, and it's purely for auto-scaling groups and servers on Linux, and that whole PHP kind of maybe Dynamo, or not Dynamo, that whole weird world of things that they do over there. Just
it's like the container services.
That weird world of non-CF stuff.
Yeah, I don't get it. Why?
Yeah, I resemble that remark.
Yeah, those weirdos. So where is? Gosh, I really want to set up a new user, create a new user. This is the last time these user security credentials will be available for download.
Wow.
Anytime you create a user, same exact thing. When you first log in, you can download one time. Don't ever lose that key. Otherwise, you have to delete the whole entire account, and you're done. And they can't even recover it for you. So if you have one user account, you set everything up, and you're like, oh, my computer crashed. I don't have that key. Then you delete everything. So keep that in mind. This is their key, secret key. Let's see, can I do... Groups, security access advisors. I forgot exactly where they have the credentials. But you can go through it and actually assign credentials down to a very micro level of what they have access to. I don't know where it is right now. Oh, this has changed. Oh, this has changed. That's why I don't have access. I don't have. So these are the individual policies that you have access to. VPC read. Amazon Redshift, Amazon Route 53, SES full access, just read only to the email, just send only to the email, machine learning, I mean everything. Let's see if we can have a... This is different than what I had. But yeah, you get the gist here. You can really just drill down on the individual level of the stuff. VPN connections we kind of went over. Again, you get charged, but it's a hardware VPN connection or a software one. You get charged by the minute. Availability zones. It forces you to have an availability zone, 2 availability zones within a certain region, within the cloud, or your own VPC cloud. And that's for failover. And you can have... again, when an EC2 spins up, you can have it go into a different zone, maybe in the same zone. It's just really, really, really scalable and secure. IIS security, like I said, you are in charge of everything. So your server that you get, you are in charge of. So you have to install your firewall software if you want it. You have to charge your ColdFusion security if you want it, like the Foundio stuff that they have, and you pay for it. So I don't know if you guys remember the 20th thing that when Alicia was here, I kind of made a realization about 2 weeks into it, right before I was starting up production on this thing. I was like, oh, I should do the lockdown guide. Oh, okay, cool. And I thought, well, wait a second here. Shouldn't the lockdown guide be already incorporated into these services they're providing me? What is Orbitera really providing me? And really, they're not providing you with anything other than a ColdFusion Enterprise license. So when I talked to Alicia about this, she said, oh, I thought we did this already. And I'm like, no, we don't do this. So this next one that they do, they're going to provide all the AMIs. I don't want to speak for her, but when I talked to her about it, she said that they're going to work with Peak Freitag and get the AMIs that they offer to be automatically with the lockdown guide. And if you ever did the lockdown guide, you know that it takes hours and hours and it's really complicated to set up. So that's a huge plus if they actually do that. You get one free Elastic IP address, and then the rest you have to pay for, 50 cents. Elastic IPs are actually internet-facing IP addresses.
They're free if you use them.
No, you get one for free.
If you assign one but don't use it, they charge you like 2 cents an hour for not using it. But if you use it, they don't charge you for it, which is really weird. Because I've got like 4 or 5 and we don't pay anything for the IPs, as long as I use them. So if you ever unassign them and you don't plan on using that same one, if it's not important to you, throw it away.
Throw it away. It goes back in a pool. And again, it doesn't matter what your IP address is because you have the DNS name.
Yeah, if you're doing it that way, because we hit all of our stuff through IP addresses.
Okay.
At least ones we're setting up, because they're not public. They're just for our own
internal
like API servers. So yeah, but we want to always keep the same IP address. So if I spin up a new server, I move the IP to another machine and go that route. But yeah, as long as you use them, they don't care. They care that you record them and don't use them.
When I read it somewhere, because I was being charged for one, I could have sworn it was when I looked at the bill. It said like I was using 2, but maybe the server wasn't on, so I was being charged.
Yeah. If you have an IP address assigned to it and you turn the server off, they'll charge you for it.
They'll charge you for it.
It has to be for a running server.
Yeah, because they only have so many of them, right?
Yeah, and they want to make sure that they're being used.
Right. So if you're going to use this, whiteboard of infrastructure. So get the whiteboard out. Right? Okay, this is what we need. Application servers, we need the web server, we need the RDS service. How are we going to make this up? Who goes what? Where are we going to put where? Who's in charge of what? Stuff like that. If I would have had this document in the very beginning, or even this document in the very beginning, they didn't have this until a few months ago, this one. I happened to come across this one through hours and hours of research. My life would have been a million times easier, is all I can say. If you take this, you model it after this, and you take their 4 different diagrams or whatever they have, like I said earlier, we built our VPC and our whole infrastructure, and then we destroyed it all, we rebuilt it because we built something wrong, and then we went through the thing like 2 or 3 times and the last time we did it, I said, oh, we'll just apply this security certificate afterwards, because that's what you do, right? You don't do it, you don't get a security certificate from the very beginning and apply it from the very beginning. You do it from the very end. It's just one of the after the fact things. And that's, in fact, I should show you real quick. Now we have a little bit of time. The security you do from the very, very beginning. Once you set up the load balancer, and the security groups, the network interface. Ooh, the network interface. So this is a virtual network interface. Maybe it's not this one. if you notice here, associate address, disassociate address, manage, you actually associate, this is your network card. It's a virtual network card attached to your load balancer. And you can change the IP address and edit. Security groups are huge because security groups tell you what is allowed, what's not allowed. Oh yeah, this was Launch Wizard. Security groups. There you go. 443, 3389. You can actually, when you set this up, you can only set it up one time for the actual for what it's going to respond to. So you actually pick and choose which version of SSL, which version of TLS, which version of this do you want to decipher or deal with. And it's very specific. And once you set it up, it's done. If you want to redo it, you just delete it and do it over again. Very, very specific. And everything is built kind of, so you build it. If it works, great. If you just need to build a new one, great, do that too, and then delete the other ones. I mean, it's literally, you're really right-clicking on something, and you're changing all these individual behaviors for it. Security groups manage the private IP address, associate a new address with it, no address is available. And everything can be done automatically according to the load scaling, to the scaling groups. So if it goes up or down, if you spin up a new server. So it's very flexible, and again, like I said before, if you're going to do this, map it out exactly how you're going to do it on a whiteboard, piece of paper, and then kind of work at it from there.
Do they give you a template of where to start?
No. Yes and no. You can kind of launch a server as a start from the beginning, and then it sets it up and it creates your default VPC and your default this, default that. But then they don't set up like it does not set up your security port, for instance, 443. It just does a port 80 and a port 3389 to get to it. But then if you want to do your F443, you got to set up a new security group that has that in there and tell that this is the ones I want, and then you have to register your certificate to that particular machine. And of course, if you delete something, you go back and redo it, you delete it, then you got to start from the beginning again. So it took me quite a bit of time to figure out and do it right.
And there's also another hidden thing too. When you're creating your instance of your EC2, they have what's called I think they call it the original standalone server or VPC server. Well, if you create a standalone server, I don't think you can add it to a private cloud. Yeah. And vice versa, if it's a private cloud computer, you can't make it a standalone and hit it from the outside world. Yeah. You can't assign it a public IP address. It has to go from within. So, and you got to know ahead of time before you create your server.
And all of the documentation is geared towards the .NET environment or PHP environment, and nothing really talks about the ColdFusion environment. And that's important because you're going to run into very specific things regarding ColdFusion, right? And it's all, ColdFusion is all Java based. You start looking at Java documentation, that's when you start looking at that kind of stuff. First year is free for the micro instances. You don't get an M3 CF license for free. You do get 30 days of free trial for ColdFusion and a Windows server. That will save you a few bucks. But going back to the cost, again, you're paying about 75 bucks to 80 bucks, depending on how many days of the month there are, for the ColdFusion plus the EC2 instance, so it runs you about $175 or so a month to run a Windows 64-bit OS on the M3, which is the lowest one, with ColdFusion, Orbitera with ColdFusion, you get Enterprise. So that's what you're about looking at for that. Now you can reduce the cost with Linux, or bringing your own serial number, or going Rilo. But then again, you're gonna have to set up your own Rilo or Lucy server, and then you have to add your own Java information in there.
With the Orbitera, do you still get your ColdFusion admin panel and stuff that you can
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, it's your full-blown server. I was gonna, we don't have time to log into, I don't even have the password, I don't think. It's just your basic Windows server. And you just set it up for automatic updates and whatever else, and you can put any software on there, you can put anything you want on there. You can even put your own RDS service on there if you wanted to. Your own SQL Express server. But you should probably have larger than M3 because it's memory hog, exactly. Map it out, attack each section separately and individually, and then move on. That was really important. That's something that I had a lesson learned. I was kind of trying to deal with too much at once. Again, really just think about your individual pieces that the pie you're putting together. If you're going to use security, the certificate, they have you do the PEM certificate on the machine. You can do it on your own machine here, but they require a certain type of security certificate, and they make you required to install that certificate on that load balancer or that security group. Okay, and that's important too because it needs to know, am I going to decrypt this? And if I am, what's the security certificate to decrypt that stuff? Or do I just send it right on through? Either which way, you need to load the security certificate to that individual device. And then of course your EC2 is going to need to have that, or your AM or your server is going to need to have that security certificate installed as well. So you have to know what you're doing with that. You're dumping everything into the IIS folder on your server. Of course you can just forget everything I said because since 6:30 at night when I started, they've probably added a new service or changed something. And that's literally
every 2 days you get an announcement from Amazon. They've added a new thing. Yeah.
When I first did it, they did not offer security certificates. So I went to my web hosting company that I have, and I got myself one of those certificates. And I probably would still do it today that way, just because. But as of a couple of weeks ago, they now have a certificate manager for deploying SSL and TLS certificates. How cool is that? I mean, it's now turned into a full-blown infrastructure that you can host your entire domain name and all the services on there.
If you're in Virginia.
If you're in Virginia. And this is exactly what I was saying earlier, because I can guarantee you, it's not in a few weeks or a month, it's probably going to be available in Oregon. Right? So you can literally watch them build this out as you have it.